Joseph Lyle Menendez, known by his middle name, was born on January 10, 1968, in New York City. He is the elder of two sons born to Jose Mendez and Mary Louise Anderson, who is primarily known as Kitty, a name we will use from now on. Years after welcoming their firstborn, the couple welcomed their second son, Erik Galen Menendez, who was born on November 27, 1970, in New Jersey. The brothers grew up surrounded by the comforts and luxuries that wealth could provide, thanks to their father's successful career as a high-ranking executive in the entertainment. However, Jose's beginnings were far from easy. Jose Menendez was born in Havana, Cuba, on June 6, 1944. Following Fidel Castro's rise to power, he emigrated to the United States at the age of 16. Despite not knowing English, he made a concerted effort to learn the language in order to secure a job and build a better future for himself and his mother. A talented swimmer, he later earned an athletic scholarship to a university in Illinois, where he met Kitty, an aspiring actress and former beauty queen who was a senior. Their chemistry was instantaneous, and despite their parents' disapproval, Jose dropped out of college at 19 to marry the 21-year-old Kitty and pursue one of his greatest dreams, to have a family of his own. The family moved to New York, where Jose transferred to continue his studies and obtain a bachelor's degree in accounting. To support himself in the household, he worked several part-time jobs, including washing dishes at a restaurant. However, fortune soon smiled upon him as he secured a position with an accounting firm. Through hard work and dedication, he earned promotions, and within 3 years, he became the company president. At the age of 35, he was appointed vice president of operations for the car rental company Hertz, a subsidiary of the Electronics Corporation RCA. A year later, he transitioned to the record division of RCA Records, where he was named operations manager, signing artists and expanding its Latin music catalog. To the outside world, the Menendez family appeared to embody the American dream, a success story of an immigrant who ascended to the top, supported by a beautiful wife and blessed with 2 adorable children. However, this seemingly idyllic life masked underlying issues. By this time, Jose had firmly established himself as a successful businessman, building from scratch the empire he intended to pass on to his children. Kitty, who had previously worked as a school teacher, took on the role of glamorous housewife and full-time mother. Shortly thereafter, the family moved into a stunning mansion valued at $1 million in an exclusive neighborhood of Princeton, New Jersey, where Lyle and Erik attended elementary and high school. In their free time, they engaged in sports, initially swimming and later branching out into football and soccer. Under their father's rigorous training, they excelled in tennis, and reports indicate that both boys participated in professional competitions. The brothers enjoyed a lavish lifestyle, attending prestigious schools, driving the latest model cars, and traveling to exotic destinations worldwide. However, those close to the family claim that Jose and Kitty conditioned their sons' indulgences on achieving good grades and excelling as athletes, as they aspired for them to be as successful as Jose had become. Jose had already made a name for himself among record labels and production companies, working with iconic English bands, as well as Menudo, the renowned Puerto Rican teen group. To further enhance his career in the entertainment industry, he decided to relocate his family to Los Angeles, California, where he joined a record production company. Initially settling in Calabasas, the family later moved to Beverly Hills, residing in a luxurious mansion previously rented by celebrities like Elton John and Prince. By this time, Jose's annual salary exceeded $500,000. But beneath this facade of prosperity, tensions were beginning to rise within the family, especially between Jose and the boys, who exhibited rebellious and defiant attitudes that clashed with their father's strong temperament. While Kitty was perceived as a kind and socially accepted woman, opinions about Jose were more mixed, with reports of incidents where he allegedly humiliated or mistreated his employees. During this tumultuous period, Erik developed a friendship with a young man named Cicerelli, the son of a prominent television industry executive, with whom he often played tennis. And in addition to both their parents working in the entertainment industry, Erik and Cis shared experiences of being bullied by students from a rival high school. This mutual adversity culminated in a street fight where they were severely beaten, an incident that seemed to strengthen their bond. In fact, the two boys collaborated on a play entitled Friends, which revolved around a young man who takes his parents' lives to secure his inheritance. The dark premise of the play would later take on a haunting significance. However, Erik's involvement in the street fight was not the only troubling incident involving the Menendez brothers during this period. They were implicated in several crimes, the most notable being a burglary in Calabasas, followed by grand theft at another residence. The brothers stole approximately $1,000 in cash and jewelry from both homes. Faced with their son's legal troubles, Jose felt compelled to intervene. Some media reports suggest that he hired lawyers to defend Erik and Lyle, paying over $1,000 for the damages, in addition to returning the stolen items and cash. To prevent these legal issues from impacting their children's university attendance, Gosay allegedly decided that Erik, who was a minor at the time, would take the blame for the crimes. Soon after, Erik was released on probation and was ordered to undergo psychological counseling. Consequently, Kitty sought the help of Jerome Daniel, a renowned psychologist in Beverly Hills, and Erik began receiving therapeutic treatment. The brothers returned to their studies, Erik in high school and Lyle in college, and life for the Menendez family seemed to return to normal. However, Josie and Kitty's high hopes for their children's futures were dashed when Lyle was caught cheating on an exam, leading to a 1-year suspension from college. Deeply disappointed but eager to maintain appearances, Josie instructed Lyle to remain in Princeton during the suspension to avoid tarnishing the family's reputation. Despite this, Lyle eventually moved to Los Angeles, and Gosay had no choice but to give him a job at his company. Unfortunately, Lyle's performance was subpar. He soon gained a reputation among his peers as a spoiled brat. He frequently arrived late to work or failed to show up altogether, opting instead to leave early to play tennis. During this time, something significant occurred that would ultimately fracture the father-son relationship. It appears that Gosay financed the termination of Lyle's girlfriend's pregnancy, a decision that deeply enraged Lyle. In response, he moved out of the main house and into the guest house of the family mansion. As time went on, the relationship between Gosay and his sons deteriorated further. The reports indicated that Gosay was contemplating revising his will to exclude them, and during this period he had a heated conversation with Lyle, who allegedly spoke to him in a disrespectful, even abusive tone. Despite appearances of being a happy couple and exemplary parents who contributed selflessly to their community, the reality for Gosay and Kitty was far different. Their seemingly perfect world was beginning to unravel. Sources suggest that, in addition to the growing tension between Gosay and his sons, the couple's relationship was also strained. Gosay's frequent business trips and infidelities took a toll on their marriage. Kitty had discovered that he had been involved in an 8-year affair with another woman, along with other romantic entanglements. To cope with her emotional turmoil, she began drinking excessively and was even rumored to have experimented with illicit substances. Kitty's instability reportedly led her to attempt suicide on multiple occasions. Nonetheless, she remained aligned with Gosay regarding their children's upbringing and never considered contradicting him or seeking separation, all while maintaining the facade of a united, happy family. However, a terrible tragedy was on the horizon, one that would expose many hidden secrets. On the night of August 20th, 1989, Lyle and Erik left the house while Gosay and Kitty stayed behind to watch a movie in the main living room. Suddenly, the tranquility of their upscale neighborhood was shattered by loud gunshots. Neighbors initially dismissed the sounds as fireworks. A couple of hours later, however, Beverly Hills Emergency Services received a frantic call from Lyle, who reported that his parents had been attacked by intruders. Lyle, distraught and barely able to articulate his words, explained that he and Erik had returned home to find their parents injured and likely lifeless. Police units and an ambulance arrived quickly at the Menendez mansion, but it was too late. Gosay and Kitty lay in the main living room, victims of a horrifying scene. Both had suffered multiple wounds, particularly to the head, and their injuries rendered them unrecognizable. It was soon determined that shotguns had been used in the attack, raising concerns given the family's affluent status. Investigators initially suspected that the murder of Gosay and Kitty was the work of gangs due to the gunshot wounds to their knees, a signature tactic used by criminal organizations at the time. The anguish displayed by Lyle and Erik seemed so genuine that no one suspected them of involvement. When questioned, the brothers claimed they had gone out to see a movie and returned to find the devastating scene. They suggested that the crime might have been mafia-related, and even provided detectives with their movie tickets to support their alibi. The brutal attack on the prominent record industry executive and his wife quickly captured media attention. Forensic analysis revealed that Gosay had suffered 6 shotgun wounds, while Kitty had been hit 10 times, indicating the involvement of at least 2 attackers. A few days later, a memorial service was held, attended by dozens of people, where the siblings delivered heartfelt tributes to their parents. Lyle hired a bodyguard for himself and Erik, fearing they might be next on the list of those responsible for the murders. For a time, the brothers were not questioned again, and the police shifted their focus to Gosay's business rivals, including an adult film industry executive with whom he had previously clashed. As detectives investigated the business connections, they noted suspicious spending behavior from Lyle and Erik. The brothers began making extravagant purchases, including luxury watches, high-end vehicles, and hiring a personal tennis coach for fees exceeding $50,000 per year. They also bought a restaurant and organized a rock concert along with taking expensive trips abroad for tennis competitions. In total, they spent around $1 million within just 6 months of their parents' deaths. Amid their extravagant financial activities, incriminating evidence and testimonies against the brothers began to surface. The one significant lead came from an unexpected source, Judalon Smith, who had been in a relationship with Jerome, the brother's therapist. Reggie approached the police to share what she knew, which dramatically shifted the focus of the investigation. That Judal not only provided concrete evidence implicating Lyle and Erik in their parents' murder, but also raised questions about Jerome's integrity, revealing that their relationship had started while she was still his patient. Reggie claimed that she overheard Erik confess to the attack while waiting outside Jerome's office. When Judalon heard Erik confess to the crime, she provided police with specific details, including that the guns used in the murder had been purchased by the brothers in San Diego using fake IDs. She informed them that she knew Jerome, the therapist, had recorded their sessions between October 31st and November 2nd, 1989, and another session from December 11th of the same year in which the brothers had reportedly confessed to the crime. Judalon had requested that Jerome record these conversations as a safeguard to end their therapeutic relationship. In March 1990, 7 months after the heinous crime, 21-year-old Lyle was arrested, followed by the arrest of 18-year-old Erik shortly after, as he returned from a tennis competition abroad. Both brothers faced charges of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Their arrests sent shockwaves through the public, transforming the case into a national news story. The press meticulously scrutinized every aspect of the Menendez family's life, fueling speculation about why two attractive, wealthy young men with promising futures would fatally assault their parents. Investigators and the prosecution believed that the brothers' primary motivation for the crime was greed. However, just a week before the trial, in which each brother would have an independent jury, their legal team introduced a new defense strategy. They claimed that Lyle and Erik had indeed killed their parents, but did so in self-defense after enduring years of physical, psychological, and sexual abuse at their hands. According to the defense, Jose had abused Erik from age 12 until he was 18, with the most recent incident occurring just a week before the murders. Meanwhile, Lyle had been assaulted between the ages of 7 and 8. These new allegations captured the media's attention, and the trial, which took place in 1992 and was broadcast live, became an unprecedented media phenomenon. The recordings made by Jerome sparked a fierce dispute between the prosecution and the brothers' defense, centered around the violation of doctor-patient privilege. Ultimately, following alleged threats from Lyle to Jerome if he revealed the contents of the recordings, the privilege was waived, and Jerome was subpoenaed as a prosecution witness in a surprising turn of events. In a surprising twist, Judalon testified for the defense, attempting to discredit Jerome's testimony, who had been the main prosecution witness during the trial. It emerged that Jerome had faced complaints from 2 women, including Judalon, leading to his suspension as a therapist. Despite this, his testimony was deemed crucial to the case. Jerome disclosed that, given the circumstances surrounding Erik's arrival at his office, he had Erik sign a document waiving the usual confidentiality agreement, allowing him to share information with Jose and Kitty when necessary. He claimed that, although many professionals would have refused to breach confidentiality, he felt compelled to do so because Jose insisted. The defense contended that Erik did not feel safe enough to speak openly about the alleged abuse he suffered at the hands of his father. During 6 days on the stand, Jerome was forced to defend not only his integrity but also accused the brothers of hiding the confession tapes out of fear of Lyle. He testified that Erik was devastated by his parents' death to the point of having suicidal thoughts. According to Jerome, Erik admitted that they had planned the crime, inspired by a movie, and believed that, despite the emotional damage Jose inflicted on Kitty, she could not live without him, leading them to decide to take her life as well. Another critical testimony came from Erik's friend Keg, who recounted that about 12 days after the shooting, Erik confessed to him that the script they had written together a year earlier had come true. He further explained that he had been persuaded by the police to use a microphone to record Erik's confession, but the attempt failed because Erik recanted and denied everything. Although the judge did not allow the disturbing script to be presented as evidence during the trial, its existence indicated the troubling thoughts Erik had been harboring regarding their parents. The California Supreme Court ruled that while the actual session tapes were inadmissible, recordings of the brothers confessing to their parents' murders would be accepted into evidence. This decision meant that Lyle and Erik could no longer plead not guilty. Consequently, the defense shifted its focus to proving that the emotional impact of the abuse led the brothers to commit the double homicide. Their lawyers painted a picture of the family patriarch as a man known for his cruelty, suggesting that he had many enemies, which added layers of complexity to the brothers' motives. The testimony continued to reveal that Jose had a bad temper, and there were complaints of mistreatment in the workplace, along with signs of unhealthy machismo. Throughout his marriage to Kitty, he was not only unfaithful but also forced her to become a kind of trophy wife, preventing her from pursuing her own dreams. On the other hand, the prosecution presented the death penalty, arguing that Lyle and Erik had viciously attacked their own parents in order to claim the inheritance early, which was estimated to be worth about $14 million. However, the defense managed to introduce sufficient elements of doubt, which pressured the jury to reach a decision. In January 1994, the trial was declared a mistrial, and a new trial was convened. The media frenzy surrounding the case resulted in a ban on cameras in the courtroom during the second trial, and the judge limited the number of witnesses and expert testimony. Additionally, the jury was not allowed to consider homicide charges, and the discussion of the brothers' allegations of sexual abuse was restricted. During this trial, the brothers were tried together, and the focus shifted from determining whether they had committed the crime to understanding why they did it. The defense maintained their argument of sexual abuse, but it was to no avail, as the jury found Erik and Lyle Menendez guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. In the sentencing phase, the jury did not support a capital sentence, considering they had no history of violence, and recommended that they be sentenced to life imprisonment instead. Although they managed to evade the death penalty in July 1996, both were sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. On September 10th of that same year, the California Department of Corrections separated the brothers and sent them to different prisons, so they have not seen each other since, as their requests to be held in the same facility also failed. They kept in touch through letters and even played chess by mail. Originally, Erik was sent to Folsom State Prison in California. Erik was initially incarcerated at Folsom State Prison in California but was later transferred to Pleasant Valley State Prison, where he worked as a janitor and spent his spare time reading. According to some sources, during his time in prison, he became more introspective and began working with terminally ill and physically disabled inmates on his own initiative. Lyle, on the other hand, was housed at Mule Creek State Prison, where he reportedly spent his time lifting weights, playing basketball, and caring for a lizard he had adopted as a pet. And eventually became the president of the inmate government and headed a support group for victims of sexual violence. In January 1997, Lyle married former model Anna Erickson, with whom he had a pen-pal relationship. However, the marriage ended less than a year later, when she allegedly discovered that he was cheating on her with another woman, with whom he had also been communicating. Despite their personal struggles, the brothers continued to fight for a new trial. However, each request for case review was denied. The California Court of Appeals affirmed the judgment on May 28th, and the California Supreme Court ruled not to review the case, upholding the murder convictions and life sentences without parole. In June 1999, at the age of 28, Erik followed in his brother's footsteps and married a woman named Tammy Rutsakuman, 37, with whom he had exchanged letters for some time. The wedding took place in the waiting room of Folsom Prison. Although Erik was forbidden from having conjugal visits, he and his new wife were allowed to kiss, and they frequently communicated by phone and through letters. Later, in November 2003, 35-year-old Lyle married Rebecca Snit, a magazine editor of the same age, after reportedly being in communication with her for about 10 years prior to their engagement. Nevertheless, the developments in their personal lives did not deter the brothers from insisting on seeking a review of their sentences. However, a federal appeals court also refused to grant them a new trial. That same year, Tammy self-published a book titled They Told Yous We Would Never Make It, contributing to the various publications that addressed the media coverage of their case. Despite their close bond, the brothers did not see each other in person for more than 2 decades. This changed in 2018, when Lyle, then 50 years old, was transferred to a prison in San Diego, where 47-year-old Erik was being held. Erik had been held in San Diego since 2013, and although Lyle arrived at the prison facility in February, it wasn't until April of that year that he was finally placed in the same section as Erik, where inmates were allowed to interact. The brothers, who had last seen each other in 1996 at the conclusion of their trial, were reunited at last. According to some accounts, they hugged and cried upon seeing each other again. In a subsequent interview, Lyle described the moment as unforgettable. Their story has inspired countless reports, films, documentaries, series, books, and even songs. Over the years, the Menendez brothers gave several interviews in which they consistently maintained their accounts of the alleged abuse, focusing particularly on their father, Jose. In some statements, they expressed love for their mother but admitted they could not forgive her for failing to speak out about the ongoing abuse. There were even allegations that Kitty had sexually assaulted Lyle and mistreated both brothers. During the trial, the brothers testified that the secret behind Lyle's toupee became a turning point that led them to discuss the abuses. They recounted an argument in August 1989 when Kitty tore off Lyle's toupee in front of Erik, who thought he was the only one aware of Lyle's premature baldness. This incident prompted Erik to confide in Lyle about years of abuse from their father, and Lyle also shared his own experiences of being mistreated, although his abuse lasted a couple of years less than Erik's. Shortly after their revelations, both brothers murdered their parents. With the rise of social media and digital platforms, new generations began to question various issues related to individual rights, gender identity, and discrimination. Users of these networks took an interest in the Menendez brothers' story, analyzing the case and emphasizing how the accusations of abuse were initially downplayed. Erik and Lyle's faces became viral sensations on different platforms, and the renewed attention on their crime, particularly regarding the severity of their sentences, prompted many viewers to revisit key moments from their 1993 trial. Among these moments was Erik's testimony, where he detailed the alleged sexual abuse by his father, stating that Jose had poured lemon into his food to diminish his sense of taste. This revelation sparked a spontaneous movement on the internet, where hundreds of young people felt moved by the brothers' claims of sexual abuse, feeling that their voices had not been adequately heard during the trial. The allegations of sexual abuse made by the Menendez brothers were largely ignored, prompting calls for a review of their case and convictions. The brothers' names resurfaced in the headlines with the release of the trailer for the docuseries Menendez Plus, which featured former Menudo member Roy Rosello. He claimed that Jose Menendez had sexually assaulted him as a teenager. The program premiered in May of that year, with Rosello asserting that it was time for the truth to be revealed. He alleged that the abuse occurred between 1983 and 1984, once at Jose's Beverly Hills home, and another time in New York City, during which the group was under contract with RCA Records, where Jose was a top executive. Roy's revelation could significantly alter the public's perception of the Menendez brothers' conviction and potentially lead to the reopening of the case. Though Lyle and Erik's attorney pointed out that, in addition to the testimony from the former Menudo member, new evidence has emerged that corroborates the allegations of sexual abuse. Allegations of sexual abuse referred to a letter written by Erik to his cousin Andy Cano in December 1988, 8 months before the crime. Years later, Erik confided in Andy that he had been trying to avoid their father, indicating that the abuse was still ongoing. He lamented that the situation had worsened for him. In his correspondence, Erik expressed that he lay awake every night, fearing that his father might enter his room. He had been repeatedly warned by his father not to disclose the abuse to anyone, especially Lil. The Menendez brothers should have been convicted of manslaughter instead of premeditated murder, which would have resulted in a lighter sentence. With the testimonies of Roy Rosello and Erik's unpublished letter, their attorneys filed a writ of habeas corpus in May 2023, seeking to overturn the convictions based on this new evidence, which they argued was substantial enough to potentially alter the case's outcome. If the petition is successful, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office will have to decide whether to try the Menendez brothers. However, at the time of this video's release, no statement had been issued regarding the matter. Currently, the brothers are at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility, awaiting a breakthrough in their case. Thanks to their good behavior and efforts in prison, they reside in a non-designated programming unit known as the Eco Yard, which provides inmates with greater freedom and access to educational and rehabilitative programs. Here they participate in yoga and art classes, study various academic subjects, and join groups addressing issues like anger management and alcoholism. Though the environment is less restrictive, they remain incarcerated, needing to report for formal head counts. Erik and Lyle live in separate dormitories with other inmates, and their cells are locked after 9 p.m. Reports indicate that Erik has also spent time painting while in prison. Erik has also spent time painting in prison alongside his brother Lyle, and they have made plans to create a mural on the concrete walls surrounding the Eco Yard. In 2023, a popular streaming platform announced the production of a miniseries based on the true story of the Menendez brothers. However, it wasn't until September 19, 2024, that the case resurfaced in the headlines during the broadcast of the first episode of the series titled Monsters, the story of Lyle and Erik Menendez, directed by Ryan Murphy. The production has faced significant criticism, particularly from its own protagonists. From prison, the brothers condemned the series for distorting the truth and perpetuating stereotypes about child abuse and family violence. Erik and Lyle expressed their deep outrage at how they are portrayed, arguing that the show simplifies and exaggerates certain aspects of their story while omitting crucial information necessary to understand the motives behind their actions. The siblings maintained that they were subjected to years of emotional and sexual abuse at the hands of their father, asserting that their actions were a desperate response to an intolerable situation. In a widely reported statement, Erik emphasized that child abuse cannot be erased or simplified and questioned the portrayal of his older brother, asserting that it was reduced to a caricature rooted in horrific acts of abuse. He expressed his anger, stating that the miniseries re-victimizes him and reinforces outdated notions about male sexual abuse. The eldest Menendez brothers stressed that society has made significant progress in understanding and recognizing this phenomenon over recent decades. Consequently, he believes that the series represents a regression, prioritizing the crime over the underlying causes of the abuse. Although some praise the series for its dramatic storytelling and emotional impact, it has also faced criticism from viewers who argue that the production sexualizes certain aspects of a high-profile criminal case involving sensitive issues such as patricide and child sexual abuse. Even some fans have complained that both the series poster in the preview as well as the episodes aired up to the time of this video's publication hint at an incestuous relationship between Lyle and Erik. Internet users have taken to social media to question why Lyle is portrayed negatively compared to Erik, who is presented as the more sympathetic character. In contrast, Lyle is depicted in a less favorable light, often shown using illicit substances and being more focused on superficial pursuits. This portrayal starkly contrasts with the testimonies of family and friends who depicted the siblings quite differently from how they are represented in the show. While this is not necessarily an inaccuracy, it is a narrative choice made by the show's creators which some viewers feel is overly biased. The first installment of the hit Monsters series, titled Dahmer, defended their decision to dramatize the case by asserting that it was based on real events and that their goal was to explore the complexity of the crimes. The platform emphasized the importance of offering different perspectives on a case that has garnered significant interest over the years. Following the premiere of the series, attention was drawn to the presence of celebrity Kim Kardashian at the Richard Donovan Correctional Center, where she was to meet with approximately 40 inmates, including Lyle and Erik. The meeting reportedly went smoothly with Khloe Kardashian, Kris Jenner, film producer Scott Budnick, and Cooper Koch, the actor who portrays Erik in the miniseries, also in attendance. Kim is running a campaign related to prison reform, and during the meeting she discussed Green Space, an initiative led by Lyle with Erik's support, which promotes the improvement of outdoor spaces in prisons to facilitate inmates' rehabilitation. Amid the controversy generated by the miniseries, it was reported that Erik and Lyle would talk for the first time in decades about the murder of their parents in a documentary titled Menendez Brothers, set to air on October 7th on the same digital platform, following the narrative established in Monsters, the story of Lyle and Erik Menendez. This documentary is anticipated to provide further insights into their story and the events surrounding the case. On Monday, September 23, 2024, Lyle can be heard on social media stating that everyone knows why they ended their parents' lives, while Erik adds that what transpired that night is widely recognized, but there is much that remains untold. According to a statement released, the documentary directed by Argentine filmmaker Alejandro Harmon will present a fresh vision and perspective on a case that people lives in. The lawyers involved in the trial, journalists who covered the case, and family members. Well, folks, that wraps up today's video. As I mentioned in the introduction, this case continues to attract significant media attention from people around the world, as everyone wants to learn more about it. It's a story that, as you'll see in the video, is quite lengthy, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you seen the Netflix series? What do you think about it? Remember to engage in respectful discussions with one another. This new documentary will provide an opportunity to deepen our understanding of the case, allowing us to form informed opinions. If you found this video informative, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I upload updates 3 to 4 times a week, and subscribers will receive notifications every time I post a new video. Until next time, take care and see you with another case. Bye-bye.